The King's Avatar, Chapter 1557 Protect Yourself. Audio source, wuxia-world-audiobook.com. Chapter 1557, Protect Yourself. Translator, Gnome Yummy. Editor, Gnome Yummy. Although the wave of attacks from Zhang Zhali's dazzling 100 blossoms failed to completely hold down Tang Ru's soft mist, it had still proved a significant hindrance to her escape. Soft mist couldn't keep moving straight and had to change directions many times to dodge, allowing tyranny to close the distance by a considerable amount. The final implosion grenade had helped Soft Mist move forward a bit because she had taken that extra step, but it had also disrupted Tang Ru's rhythm. While Soft Mist was sent forward, it had been diagonally, and to her sides were the walls of the canyon. She wouldn't be going very far before she crashed. Lin Jingyan's Dark Thunder had predicted where she would end up and suddenly picked up his speed. He was breaking away from the team's formation. However, battles were constantly changing. Formations had to adapt according to the circumstances. Dark Thunder broke away from the team to deal with the change in circumstances. Poison Needle. Dark Thunder flicked his wrists and threw out a needle. The needle was as thin as an oxen hair. It was practically invisible to the eye. Lin Jingyan was even borrowing the light cover from dazzling 100 Blossoms' attacks. Let alone Tang Ru, even the spectators who could see the entire picture hadn't noticed, keeping everyone but himself in the dark. Tang Ru hadn't noticed it. She didn't have the energy to keep an eye on everything at the moment. The implosion grenade had sent Soft Mist flying extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, she had reached the wall. But just when everyone thought that a crash was inevitable, Soft Mist suddenly rolled up into a ball. Roll. She completed a roll on the wall. Quick recover. The impact was negated by the quick recover. As a result, when she landed back onto the ground, she had complete control over her balance. Then, a nearly imperceptible needle whistled by her. It was the poison needle from Dark Thunder. It was only then did everyone realize that Dark Thunder had let out this sneak attack. The broadcast quickly rewinded to figure out when the needle had been thrown. People were now even more shocked at Tang Ru's keen senses. Although this time, they went AEAD of themselves. Tang Ru hadn't noticed the poison needle either. In reality, she had dodged it by a stroke of luck. That's too crazy, no. Countless viewers were awestruck. The Tyranny players weren't in shock though. In an instant, the entire team accelerated. The fastest member, Dark Thunder, didn't land the poison needle, but before the light had faded, he had followed with a powerful knee strike, chaining the attacks tightly. The needle had missed, but he was there now. Soft Mist hadn't steadied herself yet. She didn't have time to dodge, so she lashed out with her spear, wanting to use an attack to parry the blow and keep her balance. Then, she could use the impact from powerful knee strike to help her escape. Bang! Dark Thunder struck Soft Mist's spear, causing Soft Mist to sway. Tang Ru immediately knew that something wasn't right. The powerful knee strike from Lin Jingyan had been quick and fierce, but when it struck, the impact put a downwards pressure onto her. At the final moment, he had adjusted the angle of his attack, not wanting to give her a chance to use the impact to escape. Instead, he was going to pressure her into place. Tang Ru was very sharp, noticing the change. Soft Mist sunk down, and then rolled back. She wasn't able to borrow the force of the impact to move away, but she wasn't suppressed by Lin Jingyan's powerful knee strike. With this roll, she still took damage from the attack, but she was able to eliminate the skill effects. The normal viewers hadn't noticed the little sneaky trick in Lin Jingyan's powerful knee strike. They just thought that Tang Ru had been forced into a hasty response because the attack had come too quickly. Just a roll backwards wasn't ideal. Lin Jingyan had seized the initiative, and his Dark Thunder could still cover Soft Mist's backwards roll. The powerful knee strike didn't have the effect that Lin Jingyan had wanted, but Tang Ru was now held in place. He simply needed to follow up with a few attacks to make sure she didn't escape. Then, the rest of Tyranny would arrive, and the rest was exactly what Tyranny specialized in. Brick. Sure enough, Lin Jingyan grasped the timing of the roll. Before Soft Mist was able to get up from the roll, Dark Thunder threw a brick at her. Tang Ru knew that her situation was worrying. As she rolled, she tried her best to observe Dark Thunder's movements and saw the brick coming. While rolling, she flicked her spear, using the tail of her spear to knock the brick aside. Flying weapons generally had very weak priority. Lin Jingyan seemed to have predicted it would happen. The moment Soft Mist knocked the brick away, Dark Thunder quickly stepped forward and pushed out with his hands. Tyrannical Chain Punch. He wanted to directly knock Soft Mist down. But to his surprise, after Soft Mist knocked the brick aside, her spear continued to move. Tyrant's Destruction. When she knocked the brick away, the swing had been the start of a skill. Tyranny's Destruction was unleashed. The fire attribute Dancing Fire, flowing flames flashed out in a streak of red. Although Tyrannical Chain Punch was a high-level skill as well, it didn't have extremely priority like a dragon breaks the ranks. The Tyrant's Destruction was enough to sweep aside the Tyrannical Chain Punch. Lin Jingyan hadn't expected there to be a counterattack. Seeing that he was about to be caught in the attack, he immediately cancelled his skill. Dark Thunder dodged to the side, unfortunately wasting one of his high-level skills. Soft Mist immediately leapt backwards to pull apart the distance. Although Dark Thunder's attack didn't achieve Lin Jingyan's original goals, similar to Dazzling 100 Blossoms' assault, it had resulted in a significant hindrance to her escape. She was able to use Tyrant's Destruction to widen the distance between her and Dark Thunder. But Dazzling 100 Blossoms' assault had begun again, and on the other end, Han Wenqing's Desert Dust had arrived. Soaring Tiger. Han Wenqing didn't hold back. His very first move was fierce and resolute. Desert Dust had arrived even before Dazzling 100 Blossoms' bullets did as he rushed towards Soft Mist. Soaring Tiger had very high priority. Learning from her experience with powerful knee strike, Tang Ru didn't dare to try and borrow the force of its impact to escape. She was still too inexperienced against these old generals in the usage of these small tricks. Dodge. Desert Dust came afterwards, so he was still a bit far away. Tang Ru had time to dodge. Desert Dust's kick missed, whistling past Soft Mist. Although the attack missed, Desert Dust had landed in a position that cut off Tang Ru's retreat path. The moment Desert Dust swept past Soft Mist, she thrust her spear at him. Circle Swing. Tang Ru had noticed his intent and wanted to try and toss Desert Dust back. The circle swing had been extremely accurate. Just when she was about to land the grab, Soft Mist suddenly leapt to the side. The circle swing missed. Suddenly, white flames roared to life where Soft Mist had been standing previously. Sacred Fire. A movable rock's backlight cross was still glowing from using the skill. Tang Ru had no choice but to give up on the circle swing. Desert Dust landed on the ground and turned around. His imposing figure made it seem as if the canyon was impenetrable as long as he stood there. Dazzling 100 Blossoms' attacks arrived in an instant. Having dodged the Sacred Fire, Tang Ru had no room to breathe. Soft Mist quickly ran, avoiding the rain of bullets from Dazzling 100 Blossoms. Lin Jingyan's Dark Thunder and Han Wenqing's Desert Dust had formed a pincer on Soft Mist, the former in front, the latter behind. WuxiaWorldAudio.com. They kept a distance from her, not immediately rushing at her just in case. Zhang Xinji's immovable rock and Song Qing's River Sunset, who was protecting him, was hurrying over as well. A 1v5. It was now a true 1v5. Tyranny was no longer harassing her from a safe distance, nor were they just sending out probing attacks. In the end, Tyranny had trapped Tang Ru's Soft Mist. These old generals weren't going to miss an opportunity just out of caution. Their caution only made their choices timed more perfectly. After making sure that their encirclement was faultless, Tyranny began their assault. With this sort of encirclement, how long would it take for them to kill a single character? It was hard to give a precise answer. Compared to the 5 with the overwhelming advantage, it was more dependent on the single player defending against the 5. Intuition, reaction speed, technique. In these moments, these attributes were key, but more importantly was the player's willpower. A 1v5. It wasn't an equal playing field. Many people would give up facing this kind of situation. Tang Rou didn't though. No pro player would so easily give up in such a crucial match. But Tang Rou's current situation was particularly troublesome. She didn't have a strategic goal in mind. She also didn't know if there was any hope the others could get to her in time. She could only give it her all and survive as long as she could. Soft Mist's health dropped rapidly, but her struggle could clearly be seen. Protect yourself. Who knew why? But Yishu's previous instructions to Tang Rou suddenly floated to many people's minds. 1v5. Protect yourself. Everyone just thought of it as a casual remark, but it looked like these words spoke true. While in this encirclement, she was doing her utmost to carry out these orders. Just a bit more. People began to pray, because they could see the situation more clearly than Tang Rou. From their omniscient view of the map, they could see Happy's other 4 players hurrying over to her location. For Tang Rou, it was hope. But since they were trying to get here as fast as possible, they gave up on moving together as a whole. For example, Happy's fastest member was undoubtedly Yishu's Lord Grimm. By using movement skill after movement skill, he had left the other 3 in the dust. In an unbelievably short amount of time, he had reached the battlefield. Even so, wasn't it still a 2v5? When comparing it to a 1v5, it wasn't really that much better. Yishu had Lord Grimm rush over nonetheless. After locating Tyranny, he didn't hide himself and went straight for them. "I'm here," Yishu announced his arrival in the public chat. End chapter.
The King's Avatar, Chapter 1558 Appetizer, Audio Source, WuxaWorldAudiobook.com. Chapter 1558, Appetizer. Translator, Nomyami. Editor, Nomyami. I'm here. It was a very ordinary phrase, but saying it in this situation gave off a "you've been surrounded" air to it. What made it even more unbearable was that Tang Rou's soft mist was currently surrounded by tyranny. Yishu's Lord Grimm had come charging in alone. He was simply adding oil to the fire. If he had just quietly rushed in, it would have been fine. But he just had to announce himself in the public chat. This was a glory match. There could only be at most 5 players on a side. You can yell all you want, but the other side wasn't going to think you had brought 100 people with you. They couldn't understand the reason for Yishu's bravado, but Tyranny's reaction left him even more puzzled. Tyranny had unexpectedly been scared by Yishu, quickly pulling back. The way they positioned themselves made it appear as if they were about to face an imminent disaster. They didn't look like they were about to face a single lone person. "Go die." Yishu was still typing in the chat. For a moment, the viewers were confused about which side was the one surrounded. Boom boom boom. Yishu did as he said. As soon as the message was typed out, he made his move. Lord Grimm's myriad manifestations umbrella shot out 3 anti-tank missiles, aimed unambiguously towards 3 different people. Dodge. Han Wenqing, Lin Jingyan, and Zhang Xinji dodged the missiles aimed at him. There was still a bit of distance between the 2 sides, so it wasn't hard to dodge. The 3 were more concerned with what Yishu would do next, or perhaps what Happy would do next. The other strategists watching the match, such as Yu Wenzu and Xiao Shichen, were already chuckling. Through their spectator view, they could see the map and the chat. They knew exactly what Yishu wanted to do. He was bluffing. He had been setting up this bluff ever since Tang Rou encountered Tyranny. Because of the change in the usual spawn locations, Tang Rou and Tyranny had a surprise encounter. For Tang Rou, who had been by herself, she was at a huge disadvantage. As a result, she didn't hesitate and immediately retreated. On the other hand, Tyranny, who has the overwhelming advantage, had hesitated because of this unusual occurrence. Overwhelming advantage. Hesitate. Just through this reaction, Yishu was able to grasp a clearer message from Tyranny. Both sides were surprised by the encounter. But that didn't mean Tang Rou wasn't in a crisis. Yishu had Tang Rou try to harass them as a way to perhaps scare them away. If she didn't try to harass them and instead let Tyranny dispel their suspicions, Tyranny would have immediately started chasing her, and at that point, even a god wouldn't be able to save her. Yishu had given out the extremely daring order for this reason, and it was because had given out this order that there would be a chance to rescue Tang Rou. Lord Grimm went in alone, yet Tyranny reacted defensively. Because from beginning to end, Tyranny hadn't been able to determine whether their encounter with Tang Rou had been a coincidence. They thought that Tang Rou was bait. They thought that they had caught the bait before falling into a trap. They thought that they had taken the initiative as a result. Next, Happy would be forced to appear. As a result, during this process, they had been on guard against the possibility of the other four members of Happy appearing. Then, Yishu's Lord Grimm appeared right on time, going along perfectly with Tyranny's expectations. As a result, Tyranny responded immediately, moving into a formation that they had prepared for AEAD of time. Yishu's Lord Grimm had quickly started attacking. 3 anti-tank missiles split between 3 enemies. The 3 instinctively dodged. Then, they saw Soft Mist, with 4 chasers floating around her, use dragon breaks the ranks. Out. An opening had appeared in Tyranny's encirclement. Had they overlooked Tang Rou? No. In their eyes, Tang Rou had been bait from start to finish. Previously, she had been bait to lure Tyranny over to Happy's trap. After catching her, they were now using her as bait to lure out Happy. The fish hadn't been caught on the hook yet. How could that be overlooking her? Yishu's appearance was like a weight off their minds. They had been on guard against him this entire time, and now they no longer need to. It was hard to avoid a shift in balance under these circumstances. If it had been a bit longer, Tyranny would have certainly readjusted the balance. After all, they had been using Tang Rou to pin down Happy. But Yishu sent out attacks the instant the balance shifted, affecting Tyranny's plans for him. And Tang Rou seemed like she had been waiting for this moment. Soft Mist's chases suddenly shot out. At the same time, she charged out with a dragon breaks the ranks. Everything had happened so quickly. Soft Mist escaped from Tyranny's encirclement, and Lord Grimm went forward, raising his umbrella up as a shield, blocking the long-ranged attacks from Zhang Jiale's dazzling 100 blossoms. Lord Grimm and Soft Mist turned around and ran for their lives. 2v5. That would be a joke. At this point, Soft Mist couldn't even be considered a 1. She was more like 0. Yishu had come charging in bravely, and once he picked up Tang Rou, he didn't hesitate to turn tail and run. The two left behind a trail of dust in the canyon. And that's it. Everyone was petrified. In their eyes, Tyranny was looking extremely incompetent. They had Soft Mist trapped. Yishu's Lord Grimm was alone. What could he do? Yet he just charged in, fired an anti-tank missile, and then rescued her. How could there be an even more worthless team? Only the experts understood why. Yishu had made the best of what he had, and Tyranny cautiously responded. It had been an exchange filled with complexities. From an overall perspective, Tyranny had lost an opportunity, but not much else. As for Happy, WhooshOurWorldAudio.com. Happy hadn't gained anything. After a huge struggle at great risks, they had escaped from the Kriss. During this escape, Soft Mist had lost a considerable amount of health and mana. Life could be healed, but healing would use up mana, and mana could not be replenished. From this perspective, Happy had lost much from this exchange. A good appetizer. The pro player QQ chat group was quite lively. Of the 20 teams in the alliance, 17 had been eliminated this season. However, many of them were still quite interested in the playoffs. There were quite a few of them watching this deciding semi-finals game, whether that was live through the computer, or through their cell phones. Many of them were watching while discussing in the GG chat group. Team Void's Li Xuan had commented, calling the exchange an appetizer. Yeah. The other players agreed and then continued to watch the match. For people at their skill level, there was no playoffs match that would be boring to watch. Others might find it boring because they didn't understand the small intricacies involved. Lord Grim and Soft Mist said goodbye, and Tyranny was just going to quietly send him off. Of course not. Tyranny had tried to stop them. Zhang Jiale had been the fastest to react. It was just that Lord Grim's umbrella shield weakened his long-ranged attacks by a large degree. Happy's two players had already started picking up speed. In a race, the differences in speed would result in the group separating. And Tyranny continued to be cautious, keeping their formation intact, as they chased calmly after Lord Grim and Soft Mist. Team Tyranny had looked incompetent just before, and now, their lack of decisiveness looked as if it would make that impression worse. In reality, that was not the case. Through their omniscient view, the viewers could clearly see the instructions left by Yishu as he ran away. The other three onto Happy, who hadn't arrived yet, received instructions to set up an ambush. As Yishu hurried over to this area, he had been taking note of the terrain, so he gave them coordinates for the ambush location. At that moment, he had thought up a plan. He was like an outstanding chess player. He wasn't thinking just one step ahead, but 2 or even 3 steps. Tyranny was reacting cautiously, and to the spectators, it was a very smart move. After all, glory was a game. An ambush would only result in having the initiative. It was very difficult to kill an opponent with one strike. And with Tyranny keeping their guard up, Happy had no way to focus on a target and surprise kill an opponent. Through a sturdy defense, Tyranny would be able to hold their ground against Happy's ambush and then search for an opportunity to counterattack. That was the plan that Tyranny had intended to do when they chased after Soft Mist. This time, their plans didn't change. Seeing their two targets turn at the corner up AEAD and disappear from their view, Tyranny didn't panic. They continued to move at the same pace. When they reached this corner, they raised their guards and rushed through it. But all they saw was Lord Grim. "Can you guys hurry up? I'm afraid I'll lose you guys," Yishu typed into the chat. "Then stop running. You come over here," Zhang Jiale shouted. "It's not just me who'll be coming," Yishu replied. Dancing Rain appeared from up above on the canyon, looking down. Her cannon was aimed straight at Tyranny. "Hi everyone." Sumuch ungreeted. Dancing Rain attacked. End chapter. The King's Avatar. Chapter 1559. Bait. Audio source: WurshaWorldAudiobook.com. Chapter 1559. Bait. Translator: Nomyami. Editor: Nomyami. Bang. Boom. A shot, and then an explosion. A stinger fired into the air, exploding like a firework. Missiles rained down, lighting up the canyon with flames. It wasn't over yet. More artillery shells followed, creating shadows on the ground. The shadows grew larger and larger until the missiles exploded. In a short moment, the canyon was filled with rising spirals of smoke. Tyranny had 5 people, but at this height difference, only Zhang Jialei's dazzling 100 blossoms could reach her. However, he wasn't able to display his full potential because Spitfire attacks didn't all have the same range. Bullets could reach farther, grenades closer. Only dazzling 100 blossoms bullets could reach the top of the canyon. He wasn't able to throw his grenades up there. This sort of Spitfire could only display no more than a third of his true capabilities. But Tyranny didn't panic. They had noticed the tall canyon walls to the side of them. They also hadn't forgotten that Happy had Sumo Chung's launcher. If Happy had any ambushes set up, it would be the easiest to do it from up there, so Tyranny was most prepared for it. No communication was needed. Everyone knew what to do. First, they headed towards the canyon wall that Dancing Rain was situated on. The canyon wall wasn't flat. As a result, if they were perpendicular to Dancing Rain, there would be numerous obstacles in the way of her attacks. Even so, Zhang Jialei's dazzling 100 blossoms didn't directly contest against Dancing Rain. Although he knew that his grenades couldn't reach up there, he threw them anyways, shooting them in mid-air. Light blossomed in the air, creating a wall of light from above. Nice. Even Yishu praised it. Even Yishu could copy the 100 Blossoms style pretty decently if he was given a Spitfire, but even he could tell that he wouldn't be able to copy what Zhang Jialei had just done. After all, this was Zhang Jialei's specialty. He had immersed himself in this playstyle for years. Certain techniques couldn't be copied so easily. The uneven wall along with the light cover minimized Sumo Chung's threat to them. The 5 stuck to the wall as they quickly rushed towards Yishu's Lord Grim. Yishu didn't rush over to welcome them. Lord Grim moved horizontally, sticking to the other side of the wall and shooting at them from afar. The viewers saw what he was doing and cursed. He was clearly bullying Tyranny. Han Wenqing and Song Qian could only fight at close range. Lin Jingyan had a few mid-ranged attacks, but he couldn't be considered a mid-ranged attacker. The majority of his attacks were at a close range. If the 3 of them wanted to attack Lord Grim, they would need to get closer to him, which would again make them easy targets for Dancing Rain. As for long-ranged attackers, apart from Zhang Xinji's Cleric, there was Zhang Jialei's dazzling 100 Blossoms. His Spitfire was a true long-ranged attacker, but at the moment, he was spraying light into the air to interfere with Dancing Rain's attacks. How could he have time to attack Lord Grim? Tyranny's team competent starting lineup usually had Qinmeyun or Bai Yanfei, so they wouldn't be lacking a second long-ranged attacker. However, today, Song Qian's River Sunset was put in instead, and now, Yishu was taking advantage of it. From the eyes of the spectators, Yishu and Sumo Chung had control of Tyranny's left, right, up, and down. Tyranny could do nothing, and it would likely spell misfortune for them. But in the end, nothing happened with Tyranny. So what if Lord Grim was on the other side of the wall? We'll just ignore him and keep going. Ignore Lord Grim. The viewers forgot that was an option, but what would the outcome be? Lord Grim began attacking from afar relentlessly, starting with a Gatling gun. The muzzle of the myriad manifestation umbrella shook violently, firing a chain of bullets at Tyranny. The bullets hit the wall of the canyon, lifting a cloud of dust into the air. But so what? Dust didn't deal damage to them. A bullet or 2 hitting him didn't matter either. Tyranny's advance didn't slow down. Grenade. Anti-tank missiles. Yishu had Lord Grim follow with heavier attacks. These attacks dealt AoE damage. Dodging him wouldn't be so easy. However, Tyranny didn't consist of a bunch of normal, 10th server players. Tyranny wouldn't be overwhelmed so easily. They were very familiar with these attacks and dodged them without their formation breaking apart. The distance was still a bit far. Yishu had noticed this point. In order to make things more difficult for Tyranny, Lord Grim moved a bit farther. Floating bullet, stun bullet. This time, Lord Grim's attacks had CC. Bang bang, the bullets flew. Hit. Both bullets landed, but none of the characters were knocked into the air or stunned. Desert Dust activated reinforced iron bones and body blocked the bullets. Then, Lord Grim cast a few magic spells, but as long as the attacks had no CC, Tyranny ignored him completely. The damage dealt by an unspecialized low-level skills was insignificant, but drops of water could still pierce stone. Although the damage was low, they couldn't keep ignoring it. The road wasn't short. Tyranny was venturing into unknown territory, but the spectators knew that Yishu and Tangro were luring Tyranny into the longest ravine on the map. Yishu and Sumuchung could control the left, right, above, and below for a long time. Just this alone would rack up quite a bit of damage onto Tyranny. Happy still had two attackers who hadn't joined yet either. The crowd was having a hard time sitting still seeing Tyranny's patience, especially the Tyranny fans. They felt like Tyranny was continuing with their plans because they didn't know the map. However, if they continued like this, they would suffer greatly. It wouldn't be worth it. Just when they were thinking this, dazzling 100 blossoms suddenly shifted targets. Bang, 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 he shot at Lord Grim. Desert Dust, River Sunset, and Dark Thunder, the three fighters, rushed towards Lord Grim. What's going on? What happened? Although the fans were feeling anxious about Tyranny, when they suddenly switched up the tempo, they still felt anxious. For them to have suddenly made a move, was it because an opportunity had appeared? What was it? Dancing Rain was still above them. Ha, I know her 100 times better than you guys. WooshOurWorldAudio.com. Yishu left a message in the chat. At the same time, when Tyranny suddenly made their move, Lord Grim retreated, dodging dazzling 100 blossoms attacks. He leapt up, his myriad manifestations umbrella transforming into a ninja too, as he scaled up the wall of the canyon. With just a few swings, Lord Grim was at a height where Han Wenking and Song Qiang, who had the lowest range, could only grind their teeth. Lin Jingyan and Zhang Jiale, in particular, could still continue attacking. However, up above, although the cannon fire had weakened, it was concentrated on Zhang Jiale's dazzling 100 blossoms. With this harassment, Zhang Jiale couldn't focus his attention on Yishu. And just dealing with a few mid-ranged attacks from a brawler was nothing difficult for Yishu. Lord Grim went up and down several times and then activated rotor wings to fly directly to the top. My friends below, how are you all doing? Yishu was still taunting them. Zhang Jiale was furious. Dazzling 100 blossoms fired at him fiercely, but Lord Grim simply shrunk his head back and dodged them all. Dancing Rain's cannon fire seemed to weaken again. Tyranny immediately went back towards the canyon wall that she was on. Finally, the audience realized what had happened. Tyranny hadn't made their move because they had lost their patience. They had found an opportunity, which came from Dancing Rain's cooldowns. After a wave of attacks, a portion of her skills would go on cooldown. If you wanted to keep a steady DPS, you had to cycle your skills properly. PvE players, who played against bosses in-game, understood this well. However, PvP was different, because PvP was full of changes. While in PvE, it was often best to keep a steady damage output, but in PvP, it might be necessary to bursts of damage, especially in the team competition. Dancing Rain had the high ground and couldn't be touched, so if Sumuchung wanted to fight as if this were PvE, she could do so. But Tyranny's players weren't as easy to deal with as in-game bosses. Although they wouldn't attack back, they had ways of defending against her attacks. Tyranny seemed to just be sticking close to the wall and keeping up a cover of light as they moved, but in reality, their overall movement restrained her offense to a certain extent. If she wanted to be a threat to them, she needed to go along with their pace. As such, she could not cycle through her skills perfectly. Her skill cooldowns would result in a decrease in her firepower. It was just a matter of time. Tyranny had grasped this point and seized this timing. However, Yizhu understood this even better than Lord Grimm retreated, while Dancing Rain held back for her cooldowns to come back up. They weren't big enough of a threat to suppress Tyranny, but they could still force them into a corner. As a result, once they suppressed Tyranny's only long-ranged attacker, Lord Grimm backed away. It seemed like an ordinary change in the battle, but it contained a deeper layer to it. The more skilled normal players could see that Dancing Rain had quite a lot of skills on cooldown, but they didn't know that Tyranny had led it to this situation. They hadn't simply been waiting for an opportunity, they had created it. It had been a good move, but Yizhu had broken it apart. It's finally my turn. Fang Rui popped up in the chat. Happy's next move was coming. End